Welcome to this week's lesson on analyzing fictional narratives. Fictional narrative is just another way to say stories. We will be learning to analyze a short story using the acronym SCCAT, but you can also use this acronym to analyze a novel. Sometimes analyzing a whole story, even a short one, can seem like a huge task because there's so many different parts. The acronym SCCAT can help you focus on the most important parts of the story or the story elements. Let's get started. Our first letter this week is the letter S for setting. When thinking about setting, you have to think about all the factors that contribute to it. Is it in a school or a house? Is it outside or inside? Is it in the city or the country? Maybe it's actually on the ocean. You also need to know when. Is it in the future or is it set in the roaring 20s? Does the story occur during the summer or in the deep cold of winter? So now you know where and when, but you can't stop there. You need to look for the details found in the story's imagery. A conversation in an air-conditioned room sitting on couches is going to be quite different than one taking place outside when it's 100 degrees and sweat's pouring down your back, even if you're talking about the same thing. Our next letter is C for characterization. Here you should describe the main character and any other important characters in the story. What do they say and do? What kind of people are they? Pay attention to the imagery used in the story to describe the characters. Most importantly, think about how their character traits affect the story. The second letter C in our acronym stands for conflict. Conflict is important to a story. Without one, there really isn't a story at all. For this letter, first you have to identify what type of conflict is in the story. For example, is it man versus man? This is basically a good guy versus bad guy. Or maybe man versus society. An example of this might be a person who doesn't want to do what is expected of them. Sometimes the conflict is with nature, like when someone at sea is trying to survive a big storm, or with technology when humanity has to fight robots. Once you have identified the type of conflict, you need to identify what each side wants. The robots want to kill all humans and take over the world, but the humans just want to live. The letter A stands for action. When we're talking about literature, the action in the story is called the plot. For this letter, you will want to document the 5 parts of the plot. The exposition, which is the background information given by the author. The rising action, which is action that adds complications or expands the conflict. Climax, which is the high point of the action, or the turning point. This is usually where the protagonist succeeds or fails. The falling action, which is the action following the climax when the conflict is resolved and tensions decrease. And the conclusion or resolution, which is what happens at the end of the story. Just a quick note, although most stories have a resolution, some don't. Sometimes an author leaves you hanging on purpose just to make you think. The last letter in our acronym is T for theme. Although stories are entertaining, they also serve as a way for the author to present his or her spin on life. What do you think the author is saying about life through the events in the story, especially the conclusion? If you're having difficulty with this, go back over the rest of your analysis as a whole to help you get the bigger picture.